All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. Thank you for joining us. This our last in our Tribe Transition webinar series of the summer. We have arrived almost. It is almost time for your students' move-in and orientation. And so we know this has been a long-awaited webinar for all of you to get some answers to your questions about the move-in process and orientation. So we are excited to get this one started. We know we have a lot to cover in an hour, and we're going to do our best to answer as many questions as we have time for. My name is Heather Deere, and I'm the Director of Family Engagement here at William and Mary, and I am joined by some all-stars today. We have the Director of Student Transition Engagement Programs, Lauren Garrett, is also joining us. We also have the Director of Housing and Residence Life, Harriet Kandell, with us, who is joining. We have lots of questions that we know that you all have that we've been receiving in our inboxes, on the phone, and we're happy to answer some of those questions for all of you today. I will give some housekeeping tips just up top. This session is being recorded, like all of our other webinars have been recorded and will be uploaded shortly after we complete the session. Also, Q&A for the moment is disabled. Q&A will come back online after we finish the presentation portion of our webinar, just to give us a chance to answer some of those questions that we know that you have, and then we'll take any questions that we didn't cover after, and we'll answer as many questions as we have time for. Of course, all of us are available after this webinar via our email and our phone lines. I'll give you a heads up that as we enter next week, that many of us are going to be out about on campus training student leaders, getting everything ready to go for your students, and we so appreciate your patience as all of us get ready for your students' arrival. Something to keep in mind. We'll do our best to be responsive, but next week is a big week for everyone, just to keep in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started and just give you an overview of what we're going to discuss today at a very high level. We're going to talk about how to prepare for your campus arrival, so what to do before you even make it to Williamsburg, before you enter that move-in line on Compton Drive. What do you need to know? What do you need to pack? And what are the pro tips that we have learned along the way? We're going to discuss that move-in process. I will tell you it is one of the most highly orchestrated events that we carry out each year at William and Mary, and many families give us rave reviews. It's hard to believe that it's as seamless as it is, but let me tell you, once you arrive here for move-in, we have got you. And then we'll talk about family orientation and what that experience will be like for you, new student orientation, and what happens next, and of course, plenty of time for that Q&A. So I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, who's going to talk us through many portions of this experience, the preparing the move-in before we dive into our orientation experiences. Lauren, take it away.
Thanks, Heather. And hello, everyone. It's so good to see so many folks on today's webinar, and we know that there will be many of you listening afterwards. So again, as Heather has mentioned, if there's anything that we can help with after all of the information has been shared, definitely let us know. So, as we think about the move in and campus arrival process, there's a little bit more to it than simply just packing and jumping in your vehicle. For those that have been able to join us at welcome events over the course of the summer, or if your students have participated in any of our stepping stones, you'll know that one of the big things we talk about is conversation and communication. So before you even start figuring out what do you need to bring, what is your packing looking like, we're going to encourage you to have conversations around these 6 topics. First off, you want to have a conversation about expectation. What do you want this day to look like? What is your travel to Williamsburg from Williamsburg going to look like? Who is responsible for what? If you say to your student, you are responsible for packing your clothes and making sure that they are set and ready to go, and we will take care of all of the other pieces, or it's yours, you take it on, we'll help you pack the car, and we're moving forward. Make sure you make that clear so that at 5 a.m. Thursday morning, when you go to jump in that driver's seat and nothing is packed, you're not in for a surprise, or at least you know that it's a surprise that might be coming based off of maybe where we are in terms of procrastination around big ticket opportunities. But that expectation piece is not just about the packing and who's responsible for what, but also what you are expecting in terms of the year ahead. So how frequently are you going to communicate? What does that communication method look like? What does the see you later look like? Sort of popping down to that last topic of conversation. And what does this experience look like for you all as a family? Not just the student in terms of picking up the phone and calling or texting, but also family and supporters. You know, if you want to come to campus, if you want to come visit, what does that timeline look like? What does the involvement or the engagement look like? But you want to make sure that you're having conversations about what does the future look like for you all as sort of a support unit as you move forward. You're going to want to have a conversation about resources, things about conversations about as you go through orientation. You know, there's going to be a lot of information that's going to be coming to you, students, to you, families. And what does that look like when the time comes for problem solving and to think through challenges that might come? And how do you want to approach those as a family, as a student? And again, going back to some of those expectations, what are the expectations in terms of who's going to take point or lead? In most cases, you're going to hear us say student needs to take point or lead. But we also know that families, you're big in their support system, right? We want you to maintain that level of involvement and engagement that feels appropriate to your relationship. And so we're going to want to make sure that you know how to appropriately coach up your student when those time comes. So thinking strategically about resources and how you're going to arm yourself with that information to continue being that strong support system for them. And then thinking through some of those more logistics pieces. Are you talking to your student about how they plan to take care of themselves? Not just physical wellness, not just mental wellness, but does your student know how to sort of, do they have the coping strategies in place? So you may know that when your student gets stressed, that they may start to fidget. So have they packed the fidget items that they need in order to sort of self-soothe? If your student tends to take long runs, or you know that they really enjoy music as a means of decompression and de-stressor, have they thought about what do they need to pack, what do they need to take in order to engage in those activities in order to maintain wellness during their time at university? And then, of course, there's the even more practical pieces of finances, and I'm going to even include laundry into this. Does your student know what to do when they might need some money? Does your student know how to operate an ATM? Have you talked about how you're working through finances, not just the financial aid pieces, but if a student is thinking about joining clubs or organizations, have you talked about the budget that might exist around club and org fees, club and org dues, or just the general, you know, every week they're used to getting pizza on a Friday night. If they hope to continue that trend, that tradition once they're on campus, have they thought about budgeting for that pizza every Friday night, and what that might look like for them? So thinking through some of the practicality of finances, and then of course laundry. Do they know how to do it? Do they realize that they will have to pay for laundry? And when they're thinking about laundry, do they know about, you know, it's going to cost so much per load? All of that information is in our Residence Life Resource Guide. But as they're thinking about laundry, you know, are they washing one sock? Or are they washing an actual full appropriate load? Or are they trying to cram 6 weeks worth of laundry into the machine at one point in time in order to save money? Well, surprise, that's probably not going to get their clothes clean. That's probably going to result in some bigger issues with the machine. And so are they thinking strategically about how they're managing those day-to-day operations of taking care of themselves and doing adulting in that way? And then the last piece of conversation we're going to encourage you to have is about the see you later. Now, Heather will have tips and tricks for families and supporters around the see you later, but really having a conversation and thinking through amongst supporters and then with your students, what does this move-in day look like from start to end? Is there an expectation of dinner? Is there an expectation of a shopping trip? Sometimes students come in with very different thoughts about what the day might look like. And so making sure that you've aligned schedules, you're aligning sort of expectations. So folks are prepared, not just logistically, but also emotionally for what might lie ahead for that move-in day is going to be an important one. Now, obviously, all of these conversations aren't going to happen at once. You're not going to jump off this webinar and say, we need to slate a 3-hour meeting so that we as a family can talk through these things. Some of these conversations are going to happen very naturally as you start moving into these actual preparation pieces of packing, of organization, of arranging. And so as you're sort of packing and arranging and organizing yourself for move-in day and campus arrival, um, finding ways to sort of naturally bring up some of these topics is going to most likely be your best bet in navigating sort of the emotional side of the experience. Now, practically speaking, when it comes to move-in, we're going to encourage you to think strategically about what you're bringing to campus. So oftentimes we think my student is going to need a business suit. Well, chances are your student is not going to need a business suit or business attire right off the start of the bat of the semester within the first 2 to 3 weeks, or even potentially the first 4 to 6 weeks. Now, will they potentially need a nicer outfit if they have a course presentation? Perhaps. But that full three-piece suit that maybe they wore to the wedding last year maybe doesn't need to get packed as they're coming to campus this first time round. So we encourage families and students to think about what might students need in order to get through their first 3 to 4 weeks of campus living. And so think strategically about size of toiletries, think strategically about attire, shorts, t-shirts, jeans, sweatshirts. They probably don't need the winter coat yet. 1 or 2 sweatshirts, things of that nature, so that students can get a sense of their space. They can get a sense of their storage space as well, and also get a sense of what they're wearing on a daily basis. We find that a lot of students will bring a lot of things into their room, and then parents end up schlepping things back out of the room and into the car at the end of move-in day because they realize that they just don't need it. So save yourself some time on the front end and think strategically about what you're packing. Think practically, almost like going to summer camp. That's a little bit of my own mindset as I think about what might I need in order to get through the daily operation of life for these first 3 to 4 weeks, and pack based off of that. The second piece of advice is that we're going to encourage you to use reusable containers. So nothing coming in original packaging. Oftentimes, original packaging includes a lot of other packing materials that just end up in the garbage and just end up taking up space. And so encourage you to think about how can you take things out of original packaging and put them into storage tubs, storage containers, or even the reusable large Ziploc. They're not Ziploc, zippered bags that you can find from some of our favorite industrial stores or online shops. Oftentimes, those larger zipped nylon bags can be used as backpacks. You can throw them over your shoulder, you can carry them over your side. And then the nice thing is that they collapse. Those bags can also then be reused for laundry. They can be used for weekend getaways. They can be reused as gym or storage totes, what have you. But the idea is that if you're going to bring something in, you have to think about how you're going to bring it back out. And so storage totes, storage tubs, storage bags, very practical, very handy, and have further uses. I will say if you decide to go the storage tub, my tip and trick around that is that you don't, while it's so nice to think, oh, I'm going to bring in these large, super duty, heavy duty storage totes, and they're going to be really great because I can pack a lot in them. Oftentimes, the more you pack in them, the heavier you get. And if you're going to encounter stairs, which is the case in many of our residence halls. We have no one-story only residence halls. Stairs are usually involved in some way, shape, and form. You're going to want to think about maybe using the size smaller storage tote so that you can sort of more easily carry up and down stairs. It also tends to fit a little bit more nicely under bed, on top of wardrobes, or even in closets. And then, of course, if you think about stacking them inside one another, you have better ability in order to do that. So it saves some space for your student, especially if they're going to keep it in their room. The last tip for packing is that we're going to encourage you to label things. And so as you're packing your containers, as you're thinking about that unloading process, once the car is in, you've gone through the move-in line, encourage you to put your student's last name and the destination on the item. So just a piece of tape with that information. Part of what that will help us do, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is that some of our sites will have move-in helpers. And so if they know where an item is going, they can help move in, and then you don't have to necessarily be shouting across sort of the bigger spectrum of what's happening about where are things going, what's happening. They can just look at the label, move it up, and make sure they get it to the right destination to help you. And then the last piece for preparing is that you're going to want to make sure that your student has taken care of everything that they need in terms of printing or downloading. And so there's going to be a QR code that students will need in order to check in at the residence life station during move-in. And so in all honesty, you're going to probably want to have them download that, screenshot it, and have it on their phone so they can quickly show it. There's nothing worse than feeling rushed and trying to connect to Wi-Fi and logging into a portal and trying to find it. So go ahead and encourage your student to go ahead and download that QR code and take a screenshot of it so they can quickly reference it when the time comes for them to have it scanned by our Residence Life staff member during check-in. And then we're going to also encourage you to go ahead and download or even print out your move-in route color sign, as well as even the move-in route Google map yourself. And then that way, as somebody says, where are you headed? And your brain automatically goes blank because you've just driven into campus. You can just say that one, I'm going that one, and you can point to your sign. And then we'll make sure that you swim in stream with everybody else heading in that direction. So those are the big overviews for preparing to move in. So let's now move into the actual move in process.
Before we move on, I
Mhm.
have a couple of pro tips I'd like to share that we didn't cover.
Perfect.
Um, Much of this, families, should be a little recognizable to you from our big Know Before You Go emails. And there were a couple things I shared in there that I want to make sure I reiterate here. When you're thinking about packing, definitely want to reiterate the take everything out of its box and its original packaging. That takes up so much space and square footage in your car. So much of that good cubic storage space is taken up by boxes and styrofoams and plastic that you won't really want to be dealing with on move-in day. So if you're confident your student will use it, take it out of its packaging. And that also applies to anything soft. I would go ahead and recommend that you wash everything. So launder everything before you come to campus. Sheets, towels, comforters, anything that your student has purchased new and they want to bring with them, go ahead and do that first round of laundry and pack it in one of those lovely big blue storage bags that Lauren referenced. That's a real packing pro tip. Most of those bags actually can be converted to wear as well as a pseudo backpack duffel situation. So I see so many people with one on the back, two on the arms. Um, and those all fold completely flat and can be stored very easily. So it's a great pro tip. And also another thing we recommend that you bring, it is Williamsburg. The weather is unpredictable here, is a tarp or a plastic sheet of some kind. One, if it doesn't end up raining, which we all hope it doesn't rain, we would recommend that you place that tarp down as almost these are my belongings. Here is my plastic sheet of belongings that I'm going to put everything on. It'll protect those items from the ground as well as you're unloading. But on the off chance that we do get one of those summer showers that happen in Williamsburg, that tarp will protect all of your students' items. So a tarp or a plastic sheet of some kind, maybe that's like a painter's plastic sheet that you pick up from your local hardware store. If you're not interested in lugging an entire tarp to campus, completely understandable. And the other pro tip from me that may make some of you best friends on the hall before day one is even done is if someone brings some tools to help with assembly of items, because nevertheless, you've purchased some fun storage container or something that requires a screwdriver or a little small handheld power drill. You may be automatically some of the best friends on the hall if you pack your tools when others are there on move-in day and looking to put together some items or adjust something. So if you have the capacity in your vehicle to have a small toolkit, I definitely recommend bringing that as well. And then just a reiteration of labeling everything. So make sure you label everything so that your student has your name on everything and the students who are helping and our move-in helpers in different locations can get it where it needs to go. Lots of moving pieces on move-in day. Nothing walks away intentionally, but sometimes two square patches of belongings look the same. And so, in an effort to be helpful to one another, just make sure that you are labeling everything. And then I'll just reiterate, it happens every single move-in that I've been at William and Mary. I get a very panicked phone call. I have sent them into the move-in line and they don't have the QR code. What are we going to do? They've called me from Compton Drive and they don't have the QR code. What are they going to do? And I would like to spare everyone that moment of panic. So I would like everyone to not experience that brief moment where they can't find the QR code. So go ahead and make sure that that's packed and ready and in the vehicle. And when we get into the move-in process, we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll talk about who should really have that QR code and who should be ready to interact with us during move-in. So Lauren, I'm going to move us forward.
Some great pro tips, Heather. All right. So move in itself, it is, we like to call it contactless, in the sense that you are going to remain in your vehicle. So no one is exiting the vehicle. We're going to interact with you through typically the the window where your student is seated. So sometimes putting together your vehicle and figuring out seating arrangements can feel a little bit like a Jenga game. What can fit where, who can fit where. And so as you're approaching that move-in line, you're going to want to make sure that your student is near a window so that we can interact with them because they should be holding that QR code and they should be prepared to answer questions and to provide responses through that process. So typically we see a driver and then we see either the student in the front seat of the passenger or in the back seat along one side of the windows. But we wanted to make sure that the student is accessible so they can fully participate in this process. So for move-in, if you're not familiar yet, would highly encourage you to visit the actual move-in page that's located within the STEP and reference within the Residence Life websites. That move-in information is going to be your source for all things on Thursday. Now, we are recommending that if you think you know campus, that on this particular day, you act like you don't know campus and you follow our instructions. So even if this is your fifth child coming to William and Mary and you yourself are an alum, respectfully, as an alum, myself, please pretend that you're not and follow the move-in route directions because this is what helps everything move smoothly. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to actually enter campus through Compton Drive. Compton Drive intersects with Monticello, and we have specific instructions about how to get to Compton Drive based off of where you're entering Williamsburg from. So north or south, east or west, you're going to want to come down Monticello and enter Compton Drive. Now, you do not want to enter Compton Drive any earlier than 15 minutes prior to your move-in appointment. When you enter Compton Drive, we will do a time check. If you are in line earlier than 15 minutes, we will ask you to leave the line and wait your turn to re-enter the line at the appropriate time frame. This is what helps ensure that everything moves smoothly. Residence Life has specifically designed the time slots to equally disperse folks across campus and throughout the various residential areas. And so we need to make sure that we are keeping within those windows to make sure that we are not oversaturating areas of campus, especially where we know we have a high volume of students moving in. So please make sure that as you're looking and you're making your plans, that 15 minutes prior to your move-in appointment is when you enter Compton Drive. Now, when you enter Compton Drive, you're going to want to make sure again that you have that housing check-in QR code. Your student has that downloaded. Maybe it's downloaded, maybe it's a screenshot, maybe it's been printed out. However, you all need to organize that information. Make sure that your student has it at the ready. And you're also going to want to make sure that they know what color-coded route they're following. So all of our residential areas have been assigned to a color-coded route to help you swim through campus in a seamless manner. When you go through the check-in process, you're going to make your way down Compton, follow the cars in front of you. You'll be greeted by folks with way too much energy in neon shirts. They will be super excited to see you, whether you're there at 8:15 or you're there at 5:15 and times in between. You're going to follow that move in line, and you're going to enter a series of 4 stations. The first station, you're going to be welcomed. They're going to check in. They're going to make sure your student is prepared. They have everything they need. They're then going to do a brief orientation check-in where we make sure that they get everything that they need student-wise for student orientation. They're then going to move to station 3, which is family engagement. And Heather and her team will make sure that the families, that you all get the information you need. And then the last station that they will enter is going to be the residence life station. And that is where they will actually receive their key once their QR code has been scanned. Okay. So they're going to go through these 4 stations. Again, you're staying in your vehicle. Whomever is driving, you are going to be a wonderful chauffeur in this process, making sure that you're staying through the line. And then as you exit the stations, you're going to follow your color-coded route. You're going to be directed into an unloading zone for your residential area. And at that unloading zone, this is where that tarp is going to come in handy. Whomever's in the vehicle, everybody's in the vehicle, go ahead and pop out, start unloading all of your vehicle's items onto that tarp, under that tarp based off of weather. And then one person is going to get back into that vehicle, hopefully the driver, so they can then move the vehicle to your final parking destination. Everyone else is welcome to stay behind and start moving things from the unloading zone up into your residential space. And at that point in time, driver, come on back to the residence hall. Everybody can get settled, and then we'll start saying see you later by 7 p.m. So move-in process, it will move quickly. We tend to have families that tell us this moved much more rapidly than I expected. And it does because everybody is thinking about the welfare of the entire community in the process and is trying to do their best to meet our guidelines. We know that there will be folks that will always have questions about what if, where do I go? Happy to answer those questions so that folks feel prepared and organized, that is the general flow for move-in. So once you've moved in, we're going to start thinking about orientation and what happens next. And so Heather, families, what can they expect?
Yeah, just a high-level overview. Again, families, you have received some really detailed information about family orientation, but I'm going to hit the high points for all of you. Family orientation takes place the day after move-in on Friday, August 22nd. I say that with an asterisk because I know that we do have some small populations of families who will be assisting their students with moving in on Friday. You're welcome to join us for family orientation after you complete that move-in process. That's specific to students who are specifically in the Pathways program. So that would be those only families really who are moving in on Friday, August 22nd. We begin the day in Kaplan Arena. We have some really great large sessions to give you an overview of all of the support resources you need to support your student during their first year and beyond. Really critical information about how we communicate with you during emergencies, how you receive access to student data and student information, and other important policies that you should know as a family member. We'll talk about academic advising and course registration, which I know is top of mind for many of you. And we'll also talk about our philosophy of health and wellness in the morning at Kaplan Arena. We have a very big lunch break from 12 to 2 p.m. so you can explore the many wonderful restaurants immediately adjacent to campus or in Williamsburg. And then from 2 to 5 p.m. we have conference-style presentations at the School of Education for you to really dive into topics that are interesting to you or that you know your student may need support on. We have over a dozen sessions occurring, and those are all available on the family orientation schedule. Meantime, at the same time, running parallel to our conference style sessions is a connections fair or a tabling fair of over 40 offices, departments, and programs at William and Mary. Come prepared to receive all of the freebies, and don't worry, I will have a bag for each of you so you don't have to worry about carrying it around. That's one of my freebies for you is a bag to carry all of your goodies that you'll get. And I will tell you that everything you'll you'll experience at family orientation, your student is experiencing deeper and more depth during their own student orientation. But this is one of the many ways that we want to equip you to be able to have great conversations with your student after they finish their own orientation experience and as you support them during the first, second, third, and fourth year of their William and Mary experience. One of the many questions we get is, oh, this is great, but why are you telling me this information? I wish you were telling my student this information. And don't worry, we are. But something that's so important to our philosophy at William and Mary is that you are our partners in student success. And we want you to be equipped with all of the information you need to be a good support system to your student, which is why family orientation is highly encouraged but is an optional experience. If you haven't registered yet for family orientation, please do so. We would like to have a good, accurate head count of everyone who's planning to join us so that we can make sure you have enough snacks and coffee to get you through the day. So please do take those steps. All of the sessions, for the most part, will be recorded and available to you after the fact. So I know a few of you have already reached out to say you can't make it and have asked about this question. We are recording most, if not all, of the sessions to be delivered after. But if you can stay in Williamsburg, I highly, highly recommend. It is a wonderful way to help you feel a little bit more secure in your student's new home before you head out of Williamsburg. And after that, I'll tell you family engagement does continue. Like I said, you're some of our most important partners, so be checking your email for all of our email newsletters that will continue after your experience. I know you've heard a lot from me this summer, and maybe you're getting a little tired of me, but we will continue those newsletters during the course of your student's academic experience. Many webinars to come. We actually sat down and planned our fall schedule yesterday, so some really exciting topics ahead. Hope you register for Family Weekend, October 3rd through the 5th, and just explore the many ways that you can stay engaged as a family member. If you want really more detailed information about family orientation, please do reference that email that we sent on Tuesday this week. And also be sure to check out the family orientation website that outlines important things like registration, schedule, parking details, lunch options. We have a wonderful information document about all of your wonderful lunch options and more information about ways to explore Williamsburg. So with that, I will turn it over to Lauren to finish us with student orientation logistics.
So great. So for your students, their programming as residential students will begin Thursday night around 7:30. They'll start with a community meeting alongside their orientation aide as well as their resident assistant, and then move into evening programming with educational sessions beginning the next morning. Our commuter students will join us Friday morning at 8 o'clock. Obviously, and then we'll move them together as their orientation groups. Please note that all new students, first time in college, joint degree host students, etc., transfers will all be provided meals during the course of the orientation period, regardless of meal plan purchasing, and they'll actually access those through their tribe ID card. So that means that in order for students to access their meals and in order to fully participate in orientation, they do need to have their tribe card photo uploaded in the system in order to receive that card. Residential students, if they've been approved through tribe card services, will receive their ID through the check-in line when they check in with Residence Life. It will be part of their packet. Commuter students will receive it on Friday morning when they do orientation check-in. So if you're not sure if your student has uploaded their photo in order to receive their tribe ID card during the check-in process, that could be a good follow-up conversation to today's webinar. Now, what happens during orientation, you may ask? There's a lot of interaction. They'll do some community-centered activities within their residential communities. They'll do they'll go through a series of presentations to learn about academics, rights and responsibilities of being a community member. And there's a mix of required and elective opportunities for social engagement, meeting new people, and getting involved. They will finalize fall course registration during the course of orientation on that Tuesday morning after they have met with their pre-major academic advisor on Monday. That is a requirement. All incoming students must meet with their pre-major faculty advisor on Monday in order to finalize course registration on Tuesday. And then, of course, as if we didn't have enough to do during orientation, we will have 2 nights, not just one, but 2 nights of student organization and activities fairs in order for students to learn more about the roughly 500 clubs and orgs that we have here on campus. So that's just a smattering of what your student can expect during orientation. And then after orientation, as we say, we stay with students every step of the way. And so we will see them again at opening convocation, August 27th at 7:15 p.m. That is an event that is also live streamed so that you as supporters can tune in and watch your student walk through the Wren building and experience the joy of joining the William and Mary community during sort of at the end of their first day of classes. And then your students will go through a series of programming called Find Your Experience, where there's a lot of opportunity for them to explore, to engage, and to figure out how they might want to make a difference, not just here on campus, but throughout their time within their major and within their activity areas of interest. And then after first year, we'll stay with them still as we help them form and focus their unique William and Mary opportunities. So that is a smattering of what we can expect beyond move-in. But Heather, I know that there are lots of questions brewing, I'm sure, from folks. So
I'm sure there are. So what I'm going to do at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open that Q&A. So now's the time to submit those questions that we didn't cover in our session just now. We'll see what we can answer in the time that we have left with all of you. One thing I do want to talk about, we briefly touched on the see you later moment during that conversation, Lauren, about conversations to have with your student. And I want to reiterate that point in general. Really, we know that every family is going to experience move-in day differently, and everyone will experience that see you later moment differently. But I would encourage you to have an open conversation with your student about the plan for the day. I think oftentimes where some frustrations can arise between family members and students and with the process itself is a mismatch in expectations for what will happen that day. What are we going to do? What time are we arriving? Who's doing what? And so just sit down and talk about it over a meal, over call a family meeting, whatever needs to happen, to just talk about, okay, you're moving appointments this time. What, from your perspective, does this day look like? How can we best support you on this day? And just having that open conversation and dialogue with one another will go a long way as you're preparing for that conversation. And that includes what that see you later moment looks like. Lauren referenced that orientation activities for students will begin promptly at 7:30 p.m., which is why we give the guidance to say see you later to your student by 7 p.m. to give them some time to get ready to go make all of their new friends and meet their new community and really dive into those orientation experiences. I added this caveat in our emails this week that some student leaders, whether they're orientation aides or resident assistants, are really so excited to meet your student, and they're probably going to ask them if they want to go to dinner in the dining hall. So, dinner in the dining hall is an option that evening. And so just be prepared that maybe your student is going to bail a little bit earlier than you were anticipating. And I always like to give you all of that information up front as clear as I can so that you know that the expectations may shift and change that day based upon how your student is experiencing their eagerness and excitement to find community. Give you all the information up top, and you as a family can decide how you're going to engage in that see you later moment experience. Just know that our teams are here ready and eager to support your students and you as you embark on this next opportunity. So I have lots of questions that have been submitted. So Taylor, our assistant director, is going to help answer some of these behind the scenes. We're all going to take a stab at some of these questions, as many as we have time for. Give me just a moment to read through some of these questions and we will get started. Okay. At my older child's college, they provided moving carts, which were very helpful. Are there any carts available at William and Mary?
Do you want me to answer?
Sure.
So we do have moving carts, but it will depend on which hall you're moving into. So if it is one that has an elevator and has a easy access in, there will be moving carts available, and there will be kind of a process to kind of grab one and then bring it back once you're done with it. So there are moving carts.
Wonderful. Okay. I'm going to answer one of the big questions, which is we know that there is only one car allowed in the move-in line. So what do we do with the second car? The stuff won't fit in one car, so we have to bring two cars. What do we do? So this is what I'll tell you. The second car should not navigate through the move-in line. The second car will not enter Compton Drive. So they will not navigate through the move-in line. The second car will proceed immediately to the unloading zone after the first car has moved through the move-in line, unloaded, and arrived at their destination parking location. And then the second car can come unload again with another 5-minute time limit, and the second car will then proceed to the destination parking. So that's how we navigate two cars. Second car should not enter Compton Drive. Second car should proceed directly to unloading once the first car has made that trek through campus, unloaded, and arrived at their parking destination. In terms of which parking lot do we use after unloading, that is a question that we have received as well. Your final destination parking is indicated by a P on your student's move-in route. You will have a primary parking spot that you are directed to and an overflow lot. So if you arrive at that primary parking destination for your move-in route and there are no parking spots, you will have an overflow lot indicated on your move-in route. So now's a good time to sit down, take a look at those move-in routes, and plan what that experience is going to look like and ensure that you understand what your primary parking option is and your overflow option is for that day. Okay.
So Heather, while you're chatting through things, I'm noticing a few questions about pre-major advising that I'm just gonna, I know it's not necessarily directly related here, but as you're grouping, just want to reiterate, students will actually be reached out to by their pre-major advisor within 1 to 2 days prior to their campus arrival. In that communication, the advisor will ask them to set up a meeting time with them on Monday, and then they'll communicate with each other to set that time up. That will allow students to meet with their advisor on Monday, wrap up any course selections on Tuesday morning, and then work with the bookstore on any ordering any textbook or course materials that might be needed that afternoon. And they'll work through those processes with their orientation aides. So as far as the academic preparations go, those will happen pretty much concurrent with orientation itself. So nothing to prepare prior to then.
Wonderful. I've got a couple questions about what do we do if life happens, particularly on highways 64 and 95, and we miss our move-in slot because we got stuck in traffic or we had a flat tire or something breaks bad. If you're still able to come to campus, so you're in traffic and you're still coming, but you're just a little bit late, hop in the move-in line whenever you arrive to campus. If it's after your move-in slot, go ahead and hop in line. Harriet, how would you like us to proceed if someone flight delayed, major disruption? How do we handle those major disruptions?
So the best thing is to email myroom@wm.edu. You can also call, but the lines are usually pretty busy. So if you email our email at myroom.edu, that email is going to be monitored pretty consistently during move-in day. And we'll see that email. And if you're, let's say you're the last appointment of the day and it is like that 4:30 to 5 o'clock time slot and there's an accident or your plane is delayed, providing you email us, we'll then rearrange for you to be able to pick up your key from the duty office that evening between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. depending on the day. But that it will be an alternative, and that it does happen, unfortunately, but we do a lot of those pickups in the duty offices that evening. So, and we also let staff know so they know that you're coming to the duty office to get your key.
Okay, thank you. Okay, where do we park when we return from the inevitable? After we see the room, we've unpacked everything, realized we've forgotten something, and we need to go to Target and come back before the see you later moment. Where do we park? You will return to your student's designated color-coded route, parking destination designated by a P on the color-coded route. You will not have to go through the whole check-in line again. Let me tell you, those excited neon-bearing orientation aides will be thrilled to see you again, and then maybe a little bit sad to find out that you've already checked in, and they're like, oh, we don't get to give you swag. So I would recommend just skipping Compton and you just go straight to your final destination parking on that day. And Lauren, I'm curious, a follow-up question. What is traffic typically like approaching Monticello the morning of move-in day? And how do we manage just the general lots of people coming? We know we get support in this area, but what does that look like?
So we actually work very closely with both William and Mary Police as well as Williamsburg Police to help with navigating traffic and traffic flow along Monticello. I am pleased to report that for the past 2 years that we've sort of run through this process, that there has been no backup on Monticello because people are approaching sort of that move-in time frame of that 15 minutes um, quite distinctively. And so in terms of Monticello, it will be busy, but Monticello is typically busy for Williamsburg area traffic. And so what I will say is that if you know of an alternate route, though, that can get you over to a shopping destination that avoids that, I would simply just to help us minimize traffic along that route line. Most folks in Williamsburg and the surrounding area know that it's move-in day, and so they too will avoid campus proper. So you'll see folks using 199 or alternate routes quite a bit because they know that Monticello is just really sort of a dedicated William and Mary access line at that point in time. So
Okay. Would a wagon be helpful on move-in day? I think it depends on a couple
yeah,
things. It depends on if your student's residence hall has an elevator. If there's no elevator, a wagon may not come in particularly handy. It may get you from sidewalk to door, but that's probably not the biggest distance. So it's something to be mindful of. What I have seen helpful, if anyone has a collapsible dolly, getting a little micro fridge combo up the stairs can be kind of helpful. So that's something I would maybe recommend, but I wouldn't recommend anyone go out and buy one just for this occasion. But a wagon is only going to get you so far. Once you reach stairs, you're going to be carrying a wagon up the stairs. So it's kind of up to your discretion. How will orientation be organized for those in temporary housing? By original hall or by temporary housing hall?
so that's an excellent question. It's actually going to be a mixture of both. We're going to provide opportunities for students to get to obviously know the students that they're living with in terms of their temporary residential assignment, but we're also going to find ways to bring their sort of destination, their original communities together as well. So they're more than likely will go through their educational sessions and conversations with their destination, sort of home base group of residential community members, and then they'll do more social sort of evening program activities, typically with the folks that they're living with in the moment. There's going to be a mix. Right now, we're working with our orientation aides to really sort of figure out how do we build a little bit of community pride with students who maybe aren't yet in that community. And so there'll be lots of socials, there'll be lots of mixers, a lot of icebreakers, maybe even some team builders. So if you know that your student isn't really big on circling up and my name is Lauren, I'm going to take a lantern when we go camping, sort of icebreakers, you may just want to give them a warning that this is part of the experience of getting to know new people, and they may not necessarily just have one community to meet. They may have multiple communities to meet. And so icebreakers and name games are really going to be our bread and butter for the first few days as we get students sort of open and communicating with one another. But we're going to do sort of the best of both worlds throughout the course of orientation.
Wonderful. Are there any student orientation activities after Friday, August 22nd?
Yes.
How long does orientation run?
So orientation runs right up until the first day of classes. So there will be required activities every day of orientation, and they're not just for residential students. Our commuter students, first time in college as well as transfer, are required to attend orientation. And I would say similarly, families who are coming to campus with commuter students, family orientation is for y'all as well. It may not be required, but absolutely is a great way for you to be engaged.
Okay. Is there a difference between any of the laundry operations in any of the buildings? Are they all coin operated, all app operated, or is there a mixture?
So all of the buildings on campus except Ledwell, which new students would not be in unless they're a transfer student, that has quarters. But the rest are the Speed Queen app that students are able to download. It is up to you if you want to tie your card or their card to the app to refill for laundry. But that is all through campus.
Okay. Let's see here. What happens if, two questions I'm going to combo. One, should they anticipate cleaning the room when they arrive? So before moving anything in, should they anticipate a quick clean? And two, what happens if they arrive and something maybe looks amiss in the room? How do students notify residents' life that maybe a door handle is broken or something like that?
So all the buildings are clean prior to arrival. We have custodial building in all of the buildings right now. And then we also have student staff and our staff walk through to try and make sure that things are good to go. If something is missed or something has not been repaired, there will be staff around. So whether it's a resident assistant or an area director, but even some of our facility management folks will be around in the areas to help assist if there's something that needs immediate attention. The other piece is that if it happens after move-in and say it's a few days after move-in and for whatever reason the light bulb goes out, then a student would want to submit a work order request so that one, that gives us access to their room and permission to enter the room to fix the issue. But then they'll come and do that usually typically within a day or two to come and fix whatever is broken in the room. That is the best approach. But again, if something is wrong on move-in day, please come find one of our staff members so that they can address it, whether it's finding the RA so they can let our professional staff know so that we can address it right then and there. Because we don't want you to move into a room that may not be ready for whatever reason. And if it was missed, we want to correct that right away. We try really, really hard to make sure that all the rooms are ready to go. And sometimes that can be challenging when there's about 5,000 students living on campus. And so if there is something wrong, please find a staff member, please let us know so we can fix it.
Yeah, thank you, Harriet. Lauren, for that destination parking, is there a time limit on that destination parking? Or how long can they stay while they're getting their students' room set up?
There's no destination parking time limit. What we are going to say is that when you leave campus, hopefully your car will leave with you. And so just being mindful of, we know that folks will go back and forth for shopping trips and whatnot. And when you come back and forth, just being mindful that the spot you left may not necessarily be open when you come back because there will be so much ebbing and flowing across campus. But yes, no time limit when it comes to getting settled. We will encourage you that if your student does have a roommate, that you be mindful of maybe giving that other family some time and space solo in the room or within the community, just maybe as you did. So thinking through some of that strategic planning for your day. Again, the communication around expectations.
Yeah. Someone asked, related to the second car, what about small U-Haul trailers in the move-in or drop-off line? And U-Hauls, trailers of any kind are not permitted on move-in day. We don't have the parking inventory to be able to take up space with a trailer. And also, I would hope that you don't need a trailer for the amount of things going into your student's residence hall. But on move-in day, no trailers, no U-Hauls, no box trucks. And everyone should be mindful of car top storage carriers and your destination parking. If your primary parking is a deck or a garage of any kind, you'll want to make sure that you are parking in not a deck. So you'll want to go to your overflow lot, which is likely a flat open air lot. So if you do have a car top storage carrier, it will likely raise your ride height too high to fit into our parking decks. And so just know what your backup flat parking lot is, and that will be indicated on your move-in route. Okay. Let's see. Can you enter Compton Drive from Brook Street or Ucrop or only Monticello? You can only enter Compton from Monticello. We are completely changing traffic patterns on move-in day, so you will enter from Monticello. That is the only option for entry. Let's see here. When do Dorms Direct items typically arrive?
For items from Dorms Direct, those items arrive prior to your arrival. So all buildings that are ready for opening, those items are all going to be delivered prior to arrival. And then if you're in a building that the opening was delayed, so if you are temporary housed in Green and Gold Village or Richmond, the only things that will be delivered from Dorms Direct will be the bed extenders and mini fridges. or the microfridges, sorry. And then once you move to your permanent assignment, when your student is moved, dorms director will then take those items that from their temporary assignment, and then any other items that you had ordered will then be delivered to the room prior to their move in their new residence hall. So it's a little bit more complicated this year, but items will be delivered prior to move in.
Okay. All right, we have 3 minutes. We have 34 open questions and just simply not enough time. So I hope we answered a lot of questions for all of you, but I do have one more question that I'll pose to Lauren and Harriet. This is a big time. This is a big transition for students. It's a really big transition for their families as well, and we want to be really sensitive in knowing that this is just change for everyone, and everyone's going to navigate it really differently. What is your biggest piece of advice for families as they enter this really exciting, nerve-wracking, scary, joyful week that's about to happen? What advice would you give to families?
I think on our end, take a deep breath. We're going to be here to support them, whether it's from our main office or our student staff or our professional staff that live in the areas. Take a deep breath and know that we're going to help them. But also, if you know that your student is struggling for whatever reason, whether that is they are feeling overwhelmed in orientation, let us know so that we can follow up and connect with Lauren's office to let them know. If it's a month or 2 or 4 from now and you feel like your student is struggling, you can reach out to our office and we're going to follow up with your student. We're not going to tell them like, hey, your mom and dad called and we need to meet with you. It's more we'll have the RA kind of just do their casual, normal check-in with your student and just be like, hey, how are things going? And just kind of tease some questions out of them, but also help them get connected to the community. And so I think it's just making sure like we know that we can help support your student because we want them to have the best experience they can possibly have here, but also for you to know like we're here to help support them to have the best experience they can possibly have.
From our side, I think it's important that everyone keep in mind that this is a time of change and transition for students and families alike. Just as you send your student off to university, families, you're starting a new chapter for yourself and a new dynamic in that relationship. And I'm going to encourage you to give yourself grace. Give yourself a little bit of space to figure out what that looks like, especially for those that might be coming back to an empty house or an empty nest. Thinking strategically through how are you going to be involved? How might you fill your time, your newfound time? We hear from families who talk about we took a vacation, we had to find some way to distract ourselves. We talk about new student orientation being very busy, filled with activities. And part of that is the distraction because just like families, students sort of are hit with the realization that, oh my gosh, this thing is happening, right? Like the see you later moment. Oh my gosh, this thing is actually happening. We're separating, we're saying see you later. We're heading down these two parallel paths at William and Mary. And just keep in mind that those paths are open. They will have opportunities for you both, and they will have opportunities for you both to grow together within a community that's here ready to support and ready to help sort of figure out what those next steps might be for students and families alike.
Thank you, Lauren. I think my piece of advice for families is to, I have two. I'm gonna steal some airtime and I'm gonna give two pieces of advice. My first piece of advice is to be so present on move-in day. Take all the pictures. Take the picture in the morning when they're bleary-eyed and you're like, it's 7 a.m. and it's time. Take the picture when they've got their QR code and they're scanning it and they're getting their keys. That's so exciting. Take the picture when they're standing next to their tarp and all of their belongings. Take a picture as a family. Please take a picture as a family and make sure that someone snaps a photo of you in their new home away from home and just be present and enjoy the ride that's about to happen. Yes, there's some anxiety and some fear and what ifs and how will this all come together, but I hope once you hit Compton Drive, you can just be present and be on the ride with us. We are so excited to receive all of you, your students, and you, and welcome you to campus. We've been preparing for a really long time, and as you can tell from the two experts here, they do this every year, and we are ready to greet you. My second piece of advice is, at this stage, families are asking a lot about the see you later moment, the see you later moment. When is that moment happening? And between you and me, I'll tell you that that's not hard part. Um, the hardest part I often experience for families and what they really have to work through is not that hug or high five or just casual, we'll see you later, bud. When you say see you later at the end of that move-in day, that experience that maybe you've thought a lot about and how will that go? The hardest part is going to be on Saturday or Sunday when you two get in your car and you drive away from Williamsburg. That is going to be the hard part. And so think about what you all need to do to keep you busy and distracted or to care for yourself when you drive away from Williamsburg. One, who's driving the car? Who's going to be able to drive the car and who may be in the passenger seat with some tissues? Two, do you need to make an emotional support ice cream stop at Meadows just up the road to get some frozen custard? I would definitely recommend. But what are you having for dinner that evening? What are you doing to treat yourself? How are you taking care of yourself after a really emotional, hard week? Because that'll be the tough part. And we're here to support you through all of it. I'm going to have tissues for each of you at move-in day, whether you want them or not. And so we can't wait to see you. It's been a joy to support you this summer, and we can't wait to continue supporting you as you start officially your William and Mary experience. We will see you in just a few days. Thanks again, everyone. Goodbye.